Welcome back to the Done Deal Show. A reported Declan Rice bid, the Ligt positive talks in relation to Chelsea, Raheem Sterling on the agenda for Chelsea as well. They seem to be really kicking off in this transfer market. We're going to be taking a look at Arsenal's business, why Gabriel Jesus picked Arsenal first above and beyond everybody else. A quick update on Manchester United to come as well. Plus, any questions that you've got, please throw them in. Smash like and share buttons. I'm joined different time than usual. Friday afternoon. Dean Jones is here. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah. Different time because I'm on a different time zone, and I've been trying to figure out how to get around this. But yeah, I'm in LA at the moment, so yeah, we've pushed this back to the end of the week. My Wi-Fi was not working when we first got to this Airbnb, but I figured it all out now. So hopefully we're clear, mate. Hopefully I've figured it all out and we should be set. But yeah, it's very nice and sunny here. But it's really weird actually working from LA because obviously, so I wake up at like 6 a.m. and it's like obviously 2 p.m. UK. And then you've got like this 4-hour window where you're basically in sync with the UK. So you've got like the 2 till 6 p.m. And then I can use 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. to like catch up from where everybody's at, like check all my messages, try to get ahead of the game a bit. And then like there's this big part of the day where I can go out and stuff, leave a load of calls hanging. Everyone goes to bed in England. And then I kind of get a head start for the next day. In the evening when I sit down, grab a glass of wine or whatever. And I can start figuring out like where the UK press is going to be at in the morning, how I can get ahead of it, send out some messages for when I wake up the next day. It's a different way of working, but actually, do you know what? It's been quite good in a way. It works.
Yeah, listen, I was in LA myself for maybe about 5-6 weeks ago, and it was the same thing. It's actually quite nice, as you say, evening time when the world in Europe's asleep, and it wasn't transfer time. It was like I can just switch off. I can't switch off in England. I'm always kind of like on.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice to have that time to just.
There's
kind
no
of
pressure. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, no doubt at all. But lots to delve into and get through today. Also, I don't want to eat into too much of your vacation time with your family.
We're good. It's nice. It's a nice break.
Yeah, and I wanted to start with Manchester United to begin with. We will get onto Declan Rice. We will get onto Chelsea. We will get onto Arsenal viewers and everything. And I'm sure those deals, because everyone's looking at a lot of the same players, will intertwine into other clubs like Tottenham as well. So stay with us, hit likes and share buttons. In relation to Manchester United, there's a lot of talk about rejecting FC, interested FC. Nobody wants to join. Two of the main deals, Jong, Christian Eriksen, feel sort of like United are in a good position. It's just waiting for the decisions from clubs and or players. What's the latest as far as you understand with Man United signings? Because there is a lot of anguish and annoyance amongst Manchester United fans about the fact they've done no business yet.
I mean, look, this is so normal this time of year that clubs haven't done any business yet. We're so early in the window. I think the reason that people are panicking more is because the season is like, 6 weeks away? Like it's a short window in terms of like, obviously it's still going to be open once the season starts. But for that first game, and because pre-season is coming up sharp, people are worried that their squads aren't taking shape. And like, typically that doesn't happen anyway, and clubs can't just rush deals because that's going to happen, because they're going to end up paying way over the odds. And with Man United, that's the case more than with anybody else. I think that with Frankie, we know Ten Hag has been talking him round to the idea. We know that he's open to coming if the fees met. But also, while Frankie is being won over, at the end of the day, I think he'd still rather stay at Barcelona if he knew he could have a future at Barcelona. And, being part of a successful Barcelona is his dream. Like, that's what he's always wanted. So he's not going to push for a move to Man United when he's at the club of his dreams. Ultimately, I think United have to look at this situation really carefully right now. Barcelona are trying to sign Lewandowski for 40 million. Yet they're trying to ask for double that for Frankie de Jong. So let's not like beat around the bush. Like, Barcelona are trying to like have their way in every sense. And fair play to them. This is a club with no money, right? They've got no money. They're acting like they're the richest club in the world still. Like, you've got to admire that. Like, it's like the bloke walking around the bar who's got absolutely nothing, but he's found a nice pair of shoes and a shirt, and he's going around acting like giving it the big one. Like, that's kind of what Barcelona are doing right now. And hoping they win the lottery. And like, they probably will, because when you have that attitude towards things, good things happen. And Man United don't have that attitude for me, right? They seem desperate. They're the desperate guy in the bar right now. And this is where it all falls down for them, because like, they always end up like just paying over the odds, or like, okay, just accepting it. Like Maguire went on for ages and they caved. Like Jadon Sancho went in for ages and they basically caved in the end. And Barcelona will feel that they'll get their way with this, and Ajax will feel the same way about Anthony. You've also got United. They're currently offering, from what I understand, about 65 million euros plus add-ons of about 20. Right? I think they're probably about 10 million euros away from actually getting something that's accepted. Like if they end up paying top end here, they're basically paying what Liverpool paid for Nunez, right? That top end, I think that's about how it converts. I think Nunez will end up about £85 million. And if United were to give all this money to Barca that they're looking for, it would end up being a similar sort of deal. And for Man United, it's not far going to be off what they paid for Pogba. So one thing I'm asking myself, would United have paid that amount for Nunez? Don't think they would have. I don't think United were ever going to go that high for Nunez. Will they do it though for Frenkie de Jong, who they need this position? That's why United are so desperate right now, and that's what Barcelona understand, and that's their strongest selling point here. Is they know if United do not get Frenkie de Jong after all this, it's seen as a massive L. It's a massive fail. For them, it's not a massive L to keep Frenkie de Jong and have to put him in your starting lineup next season, is it?
And listen, I agree with vast majorities of what you've said in terms of, listen, you've got far more insight and contacts than me. I sort of feel as though I tweeted something the other day in response to something that Fabrizio put out, and I had a fan moment where I just went, pay the money or walk away, sort of thing, or move on. And what I meant by move on is go on to some other deals, come back to this later. But what I actually don't want, sort of rethinking it and reflecting, I don't want Manchester United to cave. I'd almost rather, and this is where Man United fans have got to grow a backbone and forget the banter and realize we may not fix things. We're not going to fix things in 1 or 2 windows, and it may take even longer if clubs keep trying to exploit us. Like what I've been saying for a while, I know it's not our money. So people say, why does it matter? But if you hemorrhage on average £5 million per transfer in and out of your club, you sell too cheap, you buy too expensive. That means each summer, what you're actually signing off is your owners walking into the car park at Old Trafford and burning 30-40 million pounds. What? At some point, that's going to hurt you. That is not renewing a deal. That's not having the money available in your bank to go, right. If we were a well-run club, we have the money. We generate enough money as a football club. We'd have done things efficiently and done things correctly as a football club. Last summer, we could have gone in for Messi. I'm not saying we'd have got him. We have the money for that type of thing, but we waste so much of it. And I kind of want to see us be resolute. I'd rather not get players than pay 20, 30 million pounds over the odds again, because we'll never get out of that rut that we find ourselves in. So I'm sort of in this point where, as much as I want the players and I'm desperate for them as a fan, I want to look beyond the end of my nose. I want to look beyond the end of being bantered by people saying, you can't sign anybody, because you're looking at, like, they're talking about like 70, 80 million for Anthony. And it's like, listen, he's talented. He's a 50 million pound player in this market, tops, in my opinion. Like 80 odd million. Nah, sorry, do one. Like, I'd rather give one of the kids an opportunity and develop an academy player than hemorrhage 30 million additional pounds on somebody just so that we can have a fanfare on Twitter, just so that we can banter, look who we signed. I don't want that anymore. I want it to be more precise. I want it to be more clinical in the way we do things. And that's the big question, whether Man United can hold on. The good news is it's different people negotiating. It's a different group of people out there. So fingers crossed they're doing it differently.
Yeah. I mean, is it good though? I mean, just saw that question that popped up about what would it take for Man United to, fix their reputation, I guess, gain respect again. And one of the big things that I think is an issue for Man United is that their transfer pursuits are so well publicized, right? The leaks are always right, basically. Do you get that with Liverpool? No, you don't. Do you get it with Man City? A little bit, but not as much. And when Man City do it, they tend to still pull off the transfer like reasonably quickly. With Liverpool, things just come out of thin air. With Man United, you know who they're going after. Everyone knows it. And then on top of that, you've got people in high profile positions ending up like going for a beer with a few fans, end up getting filmed and leaking all this info about like where you sit in terms of your negotiating, and that you're not worried of finances aren't the issue here. Like, you can't get caught out like that. I understand that was a weird situation for them, and like had to make a decision very quickly as to how you deal with the fans. But like, United would never have been in this position under Sir Alex. Imagine Ferguson finding out that like one of his colleagues had been down the pub having a beer with a few fans, telling them all about like what their transfer plans were and how they were going to fix the club. It would not have happened, and that is what Erik ten Hag has to come in here and help fix, like this reputation of the club and like making them. Making people take them seriously again and understand, like Man United are one of the biggest clubs in the world. They are as big as Barcelona, but they're not acting like they are as big as Barcelona. I think that's their biggest problem right now.
I hear you on that completely. And Darius Palmer here says, Tel, what do you think of United temporarily bringing in Tom Keane to aid in recruitment? Does this show they are struggling? I wouldn't say it shows. I mean, I don't know enough about Tom Keane, the individual, to say that they're struggling at this moment in time. I'm going to remain reserved on it. I've said already, I'm going to kind of give a clean slate to these individuals. I agree with you, by the way. I don't think what Richard Arnold did was wrong, but obviously he has to be aware that people are going to film you. They are going to record you. They are going to look at these things. There's no doubt. But there we go. Darius, thank you very much for that super chat. Viewers, keep smashing that like and share button. Now, of course, one of the sort of big talking points over the last few days has been Chelsea. Marina, Bruce Buck have gone, or their positions have been very much watered down. I know they're still going to be involved in some way, shape, or form, but essentially they're not going to be involved day to day with running Chelsea anymore. The Ligt links really picking up pace. Raheem Sterling, positive talks with him, and a move to London looking like it could really materialize. And then, of course, you kind of put this news out via Give Me Sport. Declan Rice is really on the agenda. So, I mean, to start with Raheem Sterling, I mean, it appears that he is going to be one of the main attacking targets, I believe, for Chelsea this summer.
Yeah, definitely. Looking into his situation and wondering if he wants to stay in the Premier League, would he be interested in joining them? I don't think there are many clubs that Raheem Sterling would be willing to consider at this moment in England. But Chelsea, not only they're in London, they're in the Champions League, and they've got a manager who's equipped to go head to head with Klopp and Guardiola. And nobody else in the Premier League really is. So I think he would consider it. I don't think it's his dream. I think he still would have preferred that Real Madrid or Barcelona route, maybe even AC Milan. Like, he was kind of excited about that one too. But for Chelsea, they're still looking for ways to shake up that attack. And Ousmane Dembele, like that's dragged out longer than they expected. I think that they were hoping that they could have maybe even sealed that transfer by now, and like the contract stuff just dragged on and on. Obviously, Dembele's still contracted till the end of the month at Barca, so there's still a few days for that to be rectified. And I think Sterling kind of comes into the equation now. I don't see Chelsea being able to sign Ousmane Dembele and Raheem Sterling, especially as Ousmane Dembele would want regular first-team football, and he would be concerned about the amount of options there and what happens if he falls down a pecking order and he's out the picture again. How's he going to pick up his form? And Raheem Sterling's just basically looking for somebody to love him like Pep did and has done for most of his time at City. It's only in the last year that he's kind of slid and wasn't a starter for the biggest games, which is Raz's biggest concern, really. He's loved the way he's improved as a player under Pep. I think he's hit levels at times that people doubted he ever could. At Liverpool, he had all that raw potential. You weren't sure whether he could do it regularly against the biggest teams. But now Chelsea obviously having to shake things up. And I think the most impressive thing really about the new regime is that the owners mean business, and they are moving so fast. Like, to get this Lukaku deal tied up and get him gone so quick.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have happened if under Abramovich and Marina. This would have dragged on longer. They'd have tried to get more money. They just, I think that the fact that they've changed owners right now is a massive benefit to Chelsea and the fans, because I can't believe how quickly they are agreeing that deal and getting him out the door to move on. And it prepares them so well for what is to come and opens up at least one spot in that attack. There probably will be two, because there are so many players still with uncertainties about their role. And then after that, you get onto the big conversation about Ligt and Declan Rice. Look, we're talking here about, Ousmane Dembele, Raheem Sterling, Ligt, Rice. These are unbelievable footballers. And this is different level to talking about whether Jules Kounde is coming in. Like, as much as everyone wants to see Jules Kounde come in, mainly because we've been talking about it for about 18 months, like, it's not that exciting. Like, I don't think there are that many Chelsea fans like rushing to get Kounde on the back of their shirts the moment he's announced. These other guys we're talking about are shirt sellers. Like, they're the people you want to be rushing to Stamford Bridge to see next season. They give you hope that you can get back in that title race. They give you hope that you can win the Champions League again. And that's where Chelsea want to get to fast. You think there was that point, when Liverpool spent basically 3 windows worth of money in like 1 year. You know, they suddenly went after Van Dijk and Fabinho and Alisson, and they got them all through the door in really short space of time, when it was expected that money was going to be spread out over 3 years. And that's because they identified a moment when they felt that they could catch Man City. That happened much quicker than even they thought. But Chelsea are now in a similar situation to that.
No, it feels that way to me. And do you know what's interesting about if you spend like a couple of transfer windows worth of money in one go, as long as if you buy for a manager and his style and how he wants to play, which is something that Chelsea sometimes missed, I think. It was almost these 3 might fit a manager's system, but Shevchenko is a standout example. Lukaku, you could maybe argue, you now look at things Lukaku said, well, Tuchel never adapted to play my style. That's like the weirdest statement for anyone to come out with. Not from Lukaku's point of view. Why are you buying a player that isn't suited to how the manager wants to play? But Roman did that, like, as great as an owner as he was. And one of the things it's interesting to hear what you said there about they mean business. I've seen a lot of rivals of Chelsea come on here and say, oh, look, you've got to sell before you buy. You're going to be a bit more FSG than you were Roman. The world's different. And I'm sitting there thinking, if they run the club as well as Liverpool, but spend that little bit more on a regular basis, they could become even better than under Roman Abramovich. And you mentioned De Ligt's such an interesting one, because he's spoken about like he's 30, but he's 22. He's actually young. He's younger than Jules Kounde. He's younger than Konate in the Premier League. And yes, he's gone to Juve. And for a lot of people, it hasn't quite gone as everybody expected. And I actually think, well, how many 22-year-old centre-backs are world-class, like at their absolute peak of their powers? Personally, I think he should have stayed in Holland, in the Netherlands, for a couple more years and developed. I feel like certain players, João Felix, I think moved too early. I think Renato Sanchez moved a little bit too early. Just get a bit more like experience in your legs, as it were. But I think De Ligt could be, the more you read about it, the more I watch him, the more I think he would be a phenomenal signing. And the reports coming out of Italy today are, Chelsea are making concrete offers into the agent. He wants the Premier League over anywhere else. And he isn't going to sign a new deal. He's got 2 years remaining. He's not going to sign a new deal in Italy. Juve are essentially going to be forced into signing him, and he could be available for 70 million euros, which is about the same price of Jules Kounde. And a lot of people have been asking, and I know that, like you've said this, Ben Jacobs has said the same. Everyone's a bit bored of this Jules Kounde thing, but it sort of feels to me like Chelsea have stalled on Jules Kounde because of De Ligt, if that makes sense. I mean, there's reports today from Fabrizio, it's 55 million for Kounde. Personal terms are agreed. Then why haven't they activated it yet? Like, there's something's going on. It has to be going on, in my opinion, just from a fan point of view. But do you feel like Chelsea could pull off the De Ligt signing if he wants the Prem? There really isn't the room for him probably at City and Liverpool. Chelsea does seem like the best place for him.
Yeah, look, as soon as the season ended, as part of my work with Give Me Sport, I had to put together transfer guides, and one of the section for each club was who's the dream signing. And Chelsea's dream signing, and I put it down there, is De Ligt. Like, that is the guy. If you could have said to Thomas Tuchel, right, money's no object, doesn't matter what the player thinks, who is the guy you want through that door right now, heartbeat of your team, he'd have said De Ligt. That is the guy that Tuchel wants. I didn't think, and I still don't think they're completely convinced, that it could happen. Look, De Ligt is pretty much Juve's top earner, I think. He's still so young. Juve don't want to lose him. He's still got 2 years on his contract. Their actual plan was for this summer was to try and get Koulibaly and pair him with De Ligt, not replace him, pair him. And it's interesting that they are both players that Chelsea want. So I actually did a piece yesterday on Give Me Sport saying, Chelsea's dream to land De Ligt or Koulibaly. could really be stopped in its tracks by Juventus, who could have next season De Ligt and Koulibaly at the heart of their defence and wreck everything. But for Chelsea, like, this is a guy that they'd move the earth for, to be honest, if he was genuinely available, if they could trigger a clause. I think he wanted, as part of his contract talks, it sounds like he wants his release clause down, but Juve would also want his wages down as part of that. It's very complicated. And of course, the only reason they really start talking about De Ligt is because they're trying to sign Pogba right now. Same agency. So you end up talking about various deals when you're there to initially talk about one, and things move on. So, yeah, look, De Ligt, if the door opens and Chelsea can get him, then they would do that. There's no doubt, because he is a guy that would, at a time when you've lost Antonio Rudiger, he's almost irreplaceable. De Ligt's not the same sort of defender, but in terms of profile, in terms of confidence he's going to give your team, he ticks a lot of boxes. And I know you said at the start there, like, hasn't done quite as well as some people would expect. And he hasn't. And it is partly because of his age. It's partly because of the step up he's made. He's made some high profile mistakes at Juve, particularly at the start. But he's slowly been rectifying them, and he's been coming around. He's been growing. And as a lad, if you think how any of us were at the age of 22 in our field of work and what we were doing and the way you're nowhere near the full article, it's actually embarrassing when you get into your 30s and you look back at who you were when you're 22. It's often embarrassing to look at, like, some of the stuff you did, and that's just normal, and it's fine, especially, as you say, for a defender to be because you're learning in the most critical area of the field, because you make a mistake and the other team scores a goal. It doesn't happen elsewhere.
Well, this is very true. We said it on the top six show yesterday when we were sort of talking that if you're a 22-year-old striker and you're scoring a lot of goals, but you're missing quite a few, your touch ain't quite there yet, there's a rawness to you, everybody's supportive, because generally you're still a hero a lot of the time. You can be a defender that makes barely any mistakes, but 2 or 3 high-profile ones. He's moved to Juve as well. I swear that was the deal where Fabrizio was on the tarmac waiting for him to come off with his phone. And I swear I think it was. And it was kind of like I was talking to people the other day about how the transfer window, people are like kind of weirded out, triggered this year that there's so many players linked to multiple clubs and they're not handling it. And I've kind of said, well, that's how it's been the majority of the time. But since the social media element of football has taken off, a lot of that's been during lockdown, where clubs are buying less, there was less going on. You're now just seeing the reality of the transfer window fully exposed because of instant daily updates via social media. And I think football fans are just not aware of all of this. Like, people are really confused by the fact that a player could agree terms with 2 or 3 clubs and then make a final decision. They're like, really? Yes, higher than normal. How? Yeah. It's weird to me that people don't know this, but they just don't. And I think De Ligt, because of the size of that move, because of the grandstand that came with it, people were talking about the next Van Dijk. There was probably a little bit of overhype, but I think what's being forgotten in him is that there is a sensational young player in there. As I've said, he's still only 22. There are players out there that Chelsea want back who are older than him, and they consider him youngsters. So there's a player in there, no doubt. In terms of getting people back, though, Declan Rice is an interesting one, because I saw your comments from your article a couple of days ago today, kind of doing the rounds about West Ham, Chelsea looking at Declan Rice. He's on the agenda for the Boehly group and Thomas Tuchel. They may approach. Graham Bailey today has said that a bid has gone in and been rejected. Yeah. What's the latest as far as your understanding around Chelsea's? We know Chelsea want them, but Chelsea's want of Declan Rice, and how you think they're going to go about things this summer to try and sign him?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I had to be very careful about the way I actually worded it when I was writing that piece for Give Me Sport, because, I'm not convinced an actual bid has gone in for Declan Rice. I'm not convinced that, this is happening right here and now, but something is going on. And it's been, I'd say, the last 2 weeks, I've heard this a few times now, like, look out for Chelsea, they're going back for Rice, So I wrote the piece saying Declan Rice is back on the agenda at Chelsea as part of this, like, fast moving new era under Boehly group. And And that's exactly it. Like I said before, like they're looking to get business done quickly, smartly, and they want to make a statement. Now, it's not the sort of statement quite that Roman Abramovich made. They don't want to go aggressive and start upsetting everyone and start worrying about having FFP after them and stuff like that. But they are going to sign people that seriously take them to a next level. And for Declan Rice, that's one of them. Look, I know he was there before as a kid, and I think I said on here before, I know the guy that released Declan as a kid, but there's no grudge there. In fact, Declan Rice is excited about the fact that he could end up back at Chelsea. I think he wants to go back to Chelsea. So now, how does that all unfold? And it's obviously very interesting that suddenly West Ham have Armando Broja as a top target for their attack, and they're approaching Chelsea. So if, like that report that you say, is that Chelsea have made an offer for Declan Rice, then look, doors are being opened at the moment by West Ham going into Chelsea to talk about Broja and try and get the price on that one. Well, it's only natural that Chelsea use that as a way to suddenly say, okay, well, let's talk about this because Broja's worth £40 million. If you don't want to pay that, or if you do want the player, then can we talk about Declan Rice? Because we don't feel he's worth £150 million, but we do feel like there's a conversation to be had there. That is not a conversation, obviously, that West Ham want to have, and they might quickly put the phone down because they're panicking about what to do next. But they've got to accept at some point Declan Rice is leaving. They might not want it to be right now. It might be that Sullivan wants to sell the club in a year or so, and not having Declan Rice might affect, how easy it is to do that. But ultimately, I just see it's almost inevitable that Rice does end up at Chelsea. I think that you obviously need Jorginho or Kante to leave, but that can be done. And I think they would like to know that this move can actually pan out before they look to get those guys out of the door. Do you know what's interesting? Actually, I saw Declan Rice on Friday when I was flying out to America. He was actually in the same terminal. And
he's gone to Vegas, isn't he?
Yeah, he went to Vegas. He's actually in California now. He's not actually far from where I'm staying, but he was in Terminal 3, and from what I could see, I watched where I was based. Like he was just wandering around. No one went up to him. It was almost like no one recognised him. I was like, what is going on here? Like that is an England footballer worth £150 million, one of the talking points of football right now, in Heathrow Airport, where people are walking around in football shirts, everyone's excited, and nobody is recognising this guy. And I was looking at him thinking, there's part of him that will be really pleased that he's not being recognised. He wasn't like, he's just wearing a cap and a hoodie, like he was dressed as Declan Rice always is. But as part of you must be thinking, someone's got to recognise me. I'm Declan Rice. Like, where's my selfies here? But like, as part of that, like, this is the thing. Like, it's a profile change, right? You go from West Ham to Chelsea. It's a status change in the game. And I think Declan Rice is ready for that. Like, he's loved being the poster boy at West Ham. He's loved helping them, like, turn around, like, how they're thought of in not just the domestic game, but the European game. But he pretty much done that now. How much further can he take them? And is this not the perfect time for him to go? I think it is. I think that something is already happening in the background here. And I'm certainly expecting, if it hasn't already happened, then an offer to land for Declan Rice in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and do you know what it is? You know me. You spoke to me enough. I'm kind of. I don't do the semantics of the transfer window. We both know the way intermediaries are used, unofficial, official offers. There's probably been some sort of, would this do it? No. Well, and then as you said, well, can we use Broja? They've probably been told no for like these initial inquiries, but they're just putting their feelers out to see. And I know swap deals are very rare. They're very hard to kind of get done. And often what happens is there's almost like they're independent deals of themselves, but of course they weigh each other off, don't they, in terms of what you're going to do. But they've got to use that. And Man United should have used it a year ago to try and get Declan Rice with Jesse Lingard. It was something Man United fans were asking for. It was like, use that to try and get that price down.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Declan Rice, he's not going to sign a new deal. It's almost a case of, if you don't cash in now, every year from now, his value drops because the contract starts to run out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing for them. And I think, look, they're whacking a 150 price tag on there. For me, they're not getting close to that. Could they get 100 mil? I think 100 mil or less. I think, and obviously them getting 30, 40 mil for bro. I think they could do a deal. I think there could be a deal there.
This is the issue they've got, and I think it's, if Declan Rice is going to sign a new contract, it's going to have a release clause in it, and if he's going to have a release clause, it's going to be a clause that clubs don't really bat an eyelid at taking. So in that case, you're not even looking at 100 million clause. You're probably looking at 80 million, right? If teams want to know that, right, we trigger that figure, we get Declan Rice. So, you can't say, okay, we'll give you a release clause in this contract. It's 150 million pound, because it doesn't help Declan Rice at all. Yeah. Declan Rice has to get something out of signing a new contract. And if he's going to give West Ham another year, he needs to know that at the end of that year, he's got a price on his head that is pretty easy for one of the big boys to come in and take him, and off he goes. Personally, I don't think it's worth West Ham keeping him, but I can see, like, from the ownership point of view, where there might be changes coming up, why they wouldn't want to lose Declan Rice in this window right here and now.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting one as well. There is some breaking news actually from David Ornstein that says Manchester City have reached an agreement with Leeds to sign Kalvin Phillips, 42 million plus 3 million, with Darko, I can't pronounce the surname, joining Leeds United separately for 5 million fixed. So
just what you were talking about, separate deals, but they're actually swap deals.
Yeah, it's separate, but essentially it's a swap. Yeah, but Kalvin Phillips is going to be we'll get on City in a bit. City are doing proper business this summer already.
And this is what I was just saying at the top, right? Yeah. So when Man City targets are leaked, they still sign them quickly. Like Haaland, done ages ago, right? Everyone was like, oh, he's the top target, but they still go and get him quick and they get it wrapped up. We've known for, I don't know how long now, about Kalvin Phillips, and they've got the deal done, and it's June 24. Like, window's only actually been officially open for like a week or whatever, 2 weeks. And he's through the door. And this will probably rattle the United fan base even more, because they'll be like, how come they are tying up a deal like that, one, so quickly, and two, at such a good price? Like, how much did you say it was going to be?
45 million in total, 42 initial.
40 million pound for an England international. Like, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable value that they're getting there. And like, Leeds didn't want to lose that player either. He was under contract. It wasn't even like his contract's expiring soon. It's not. Like, Kalvin Phillips is Leeds through and through. It was a massive decision for him to go. And Man City have got him. They're one of the richest clubs in the world, and they've got him at that price. Yet Man United are going to have to pay almost double that for Frankie. Like, this is what doesn't add up, and where United are falling short.
Yeah, and look, people will pull on the England international part, but that's the reason that comes with a premium, is because one thing City are always vying for is that quota. That they're always after a player that fits the quota. So of course, if you're buying someone partly for their ability and partly because you need them to be able to actually compete, there's going to be a premium on top. And I mean, 40, and that's, again, though, it's good news for Chelsea, because a lot of people will say Kalvin Phillips is better than, some say he's better than Declan Rice. So there's almost,
he's not, but yeah, I understand what you mean. I mean, Declan Rice is going to be, he's going to be one of the best players in the Premier League, but he's not worth 150 million pound if Kalvin Phillips is worth 40 million pound, right? So straight away, like, even if you were to say, oh, Declan Rice is twice the player Kalvin Phillips, so what? He's worth like 85 million pound. That's fine. We'll give you 85 million pound.
Yeah.
That's probably fair, isn't it? Like, especially, again, go back to it again, like Frankie de Jong being talked about, 75 million euros, whatever it is. Declan Rice, is he better than Frankie de Jong? Probably not. Like, might be in a similar sort of tier, but if you were to take them, broadly in their assets as a footballer, Frankie de Jong's probably got the edge on him, just about. Yeah. So, again, West Ham's valuation doesn't make any actual sense. And I think that's what Chelsea are going to need to get around here, is the fact that, like, what you're asking is obviously totally unrealistic. And Declan Rice is not the sort of lad that's going to come back from America having this holiday, throw his toys out the pram about this. But look, Harry Kane, the way that he went about it at Tottenham wasn't great, but he's overcome it. And he ended up having to stay at Tottenham. And Declan Rice will have seen that and be like, fan bases do overcome issues. Like,
Yeah.
you can push for something, and even if you don't get it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And at some point, he's going to have to do that.
And I think that's something like West Ham fans. I mean, listen, I respect West Ham fans. I know a lot of West Ham fans. They sort of still have this kind of feeling like, no, he'll stay, he'll be here, etc. And listen, I understand why they think and feel that, or why they want to think and feel that. I think West Ham fans have got to kind of wake up to the fact that at some point, as you said, at some point you're going to lose him. You want to get the most amount of money possible. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans get triggered. A lot of football fans get triggered by how much money Declan Rice kind of gets sort of touted about for. But it's all about West Ham know what they're doing as well. West Ham know they're never going to get 150 million. But if they say he's worth 100, they might only get 70. If they say he's worth 150, they might get that extra 200-300 million. I think it's important. Yeah. What's your thoughts, though, on people that say, there's a lot of football fans, and you must see this across social, that don't think Declan Rice is that good. They think he's an overrated English hype merchant, essentially, is what he gets labelled as quite a bit.
I just imagine they haven't watched enough of West Ham, because from last season, he was man of the match almost every single week. And that was a season that's one of the best in West Ham's history. He wasn't just doing it against the teams in the bottom half of the division. He was asserting himself against the best teams in the league and in Europe, against some good teams there too.
Yeah.
He plays for England, and he's like now one of the first names on the team sheet. Typically, like going back to like his raw traits as a player, he was centre back, defensive midfielder. He is now growing way beyond that, and wants to be a box-to-box guy, wants to be on every set piece. He wants to evolve to become the all-round, and be remembered as one of the all-round great English midfielders of our time. He's putting such a high ceiling on himself. And, I do know a lot of people that are close to Declan Rice. He's from a similar area to me. And he's so dedicated. He's so professional. He's such a nice lad too. And I don't really see anything, bar injury, that could stop him from doing that. Like he's really got his feet on the ground, and he's so committed to doing this. I don't see how you could not rate Declan Rice as a footballer. I think he's absolutely phenomenal.
I think what there is in the Premier League is there is this kind of there is this divide amongst fans. There's people that kind of don't like so I've got friends that do this. Like my friend Have Hope, very good content creator. He gets annoyed that when he watches Match of the Day, he says there's too much focus on English players. And I'm like, bro, you do realize that show caters to a predominantly English audience who millions of them watching don't support a top 6 team. Yeah. So their vested interest in watching Premier League football. My brothers fit into this category. They're Leyton Orient fans. They have no dog in any fight when it comes to who's going to win the Prem. What they care about each and every single time is, well, who's developing for England, who's doing this, who's doing that. So, of course, on an English show, there's going to be a big focus on English players. Like, I'm sure there's a Match of the Day version there's Match of the Days in all types of countries. And if there's a Match of the Day in Spain that shows English games, I bet they focus on the Spanish players when they're here. I'm sure that in the equivalents in South Korea, there's always a big focus on Son. Like, it's the same kind of difference. And I think the people that have this kind of, he's English, that means he's overhyped. And it's a little bit weird for me, because every time I've seen Declan Rice play, barring England versus Scotland, where he really annoyed me,
everyone annoyed me in that game.
Yeah, they all annoyed me. I think I tweeted, worth 100 million, do me a favor, or something like that. You're having a lot. Like one of those fan tweets. He's been phenomenal. And I think and I think Kalvin Phillips is going to do this as and when he now moves to Manchester City. I think we're going to see I think you're going to see a kind of their levels go up when they're surrounded by better quality. And I mean that with all due respect to Leeds and to West Ham. But if you think about that Chelsea team, what's going to be in front and behind him? If you think about City, what's going to be in front and behind them? It's superior to what they have at England, generally speaking. They're going to go to another level. I think they're really going to go to another level, both of them.
Yeah, and I think, flipping this back to Declan and like his situation at West Ham. So he's been in that England midfield with Kalvin Phillips, and like he's been considered to be a bit ahead of him and stuff in terms of status and as a player generally a bit. And now suddenly Kalvin Phillips is playing for the Premier League champions, and he's going to be in the Champions League. He's getting all the things that Declan Rice actually craves.
Yeah.
That ain't going to make him want to stay at West Ham, is it? Like, sometimes you just need to take a step back and be like, this guy is a human being, a professional in his game. You can't have blind loyalty to someone. He doesn't want to end up like Harry Kane. Like Harry Kane, unbelievable captain for England. You know, what he's managed to achieve in terms of his growth of his career has been brilliant. But he might end his career with nothing. And Declan Rice can't afford to do that. And he's at an age where he can still adapt and change that.
Dean, I mean, it's exactly what I tweet. I think I tweeted it when it was talking about the new deal. For me, if he signs a new deal and there's no way of getting out within a year, 18 months, I will lose respect for him. I've said this before about like people. I'm someone that holds the trophies you win as a huge part of your legacy in the game, and I know a lot of people like certain people count individual awards more, golden boots. How often you're in team of the year? That's typically fans of clubs whose heroes didn't win very much. But for me, it's like it's all about your decision making. Harry Kane made a conscious decision to stay at Tottenham. That's no different to a player that decides to eat fish and chips 3 times a week and they're not fit. It's a decision, you know. And I think that Declan Rice has got to make the right decision for him. And I know West Ham fans won't want to hear it, but there comes a point where, and as you say, this summer, if he sees a few of those young, you know, the younger lads making these moves, it's like that should be me. And the last thing he needs is Chelsea buying somebody else who then ends up doing bits. Yeah. And he finds himself in a position where Chelsea don't need to spend 80. You know, if Chelsea would have signed Tchouaméni as an example, they should have got him. Like, if they'd have signed Tchouaméni, they wouldn't need Declan Rice. And then where do you end up? You might end up having to go to a club that your heart isn't set on. And listen, I think that the Declan Rice move is going to be a real interesting one. Viewers, what do you think? Kalvin Phillips as well, announced as a Manchester City. Well, the signings, I don't really care about the announcements anymore. Once the done deal has been said, that's it for me. It's over. We move on. Rooney just resigned from Derby. Not surprised. He did a fantastic job last year, to be fair, at Derby. All things being considered, do you know what I mean? Like, the restraints. I'm not surprised he's done that. If he fancies a job, we give out jobs for boys at Man United. So come be an assistant.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rooney, I think there was a few issues at Derby anyway. And he was going to be on extraordinary money for a manager who was going to be in League One. So, Derby will have had issues with keeping Rooney too. But a really interesting one that Rooney would go because, the next manager that loses their job, they're going to be linked to Wayne Rooney, I'd imagine. Like he'll be looking for a big job. And I think the reputation that he started to build will mean that somebody will take a chance on him. Shame, Everton aren't probably going to go for it now unless Lampard really messes up in pre-season, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, no doubt about it whatsoever. Another player, I know a lot of Arsenal fans waiting diligently for their update. There was reports today of a 70 million pound or 70 million euro bid for Raphinha. Raphinha is obviously wanted by Arsenal. They've made that clear. Barcelona reportedly agreed terms since Feb. Spurs, Chelsea, all kind of looking at him. What's the latest and how likely do you think it is that Arsenal could land this phenomenal signing?
Definitely a chance. I mean, it's really the summer of Brazilians, isn't it? I mean, everyone's after Richarlison, Raphinha and Jesus and soon Gabriel as well. So the Brazilians really going for it in this market, but they're all at a similar price point. Arsenal obviously went in low first time around. Gauged the feedback from that, and they'll go in again to see what they can get done. Like, definitely is a player that they're looking to recruit. He's not a top. Gabi Jesus is considered the most important signing at this moment in time. But Raphinha, certainly somebody that could bring an extra layer of depth and quality to that attack, which they want to keep lively. They can't rest on the fact that they've got good young players coming through. This is all in line too with the fact that they're trying to look for a new home for Nicolas Pepe. So that will now become more of a priority. I expect that Pepe has to find a way out of the club in order for Raphinha to land. And look, obviously, as you say, like other clubs looking at Raphinha too, Chelsea, Tottenham, but they're also all looking at Richarlison, and they're all evaluating both options and the pros and cons to it. So, definitely reason to be optimistic for Arsenal. It seems like on social media there's this real fight going on between Tottenham and Arsenal right now over pretty much every target. So Arsenal might be able to have something to shout about there, especially if they do get Jesus as well. I think Jesus, to be honest, is going to be the most interesting one and the biggest game changer because, Raphinha is great, but he's not a guarantee of the quality needed. And this is the bridge that Arsenal are building right now. It's the one that gets you to the Champions League, and this is a mini Man City project, right? Mikel Arteta has been involved in that Man City project. He's seen how it was built. He's seen the profile of player, the style of football it takes, and what he's doing at Arsenal is he's building a version of what they have at Man City. At the moment, that squad is lacking the mentality and the genuine quality to get close to what Man City have. But the only way they can bridge it is to sign Champions League quality players with a Champions League mindset, and Gabby Jesus would tick that box, right? One of the key things here is that they are looking to, improve their goal output, if you like, and also convince Gabby Jesus that his goal output will be improved by coming into Arsenal. And they don't, and they're convinced that they will. Jesus got 13 goals last season, I think. And not only do they think he will better that record as being the focal point of this Arsenal team, like they believe like he's better than Lacazette right at this moment. Like Lacazette years back, maybe had the edge, but Gabby Jesus is going to be an upgrade on Lacazette. And this Arsenal team scored 61 goals last season, and it's short of what's needed to get into those Champions League positions. But the style of Gabby Jesus's play, the way that he leads a line, it would certainly help them get more goals throughout that team, especially if they also had Raphinha in there. So that's what they're trying to do right now. That they're trying to get themselves into that elite category, and they know that at the moment they're short of it, but they keep backing Arteta, and that's because he has this very clear vision, and he's seen how Man City was built.
Yeah, listen, I think Jesus is going to be a very, very good deal for Arsenal, and I think that we spoke at the top of the show about United and not being able to get things done, and Arsenal are sort of showing that once you've, whether people rate Arteta or not is a by the by, they have improved year on year. There's still holes in the team. There's still question marks over Mikel Arteta. But you look at the kind of players that they really feel they can get, Jesus, Champions League player, Premier League, 4-time Premier. I think he's got more Premier League titles than Arsenal do, if that makes sense. Like, that's not a dig at Arsenal. It's just, he's been successful. Yeah. Raphinha, my view is always you bid for players that you've got a good chance of signing. Arsenal obviously went the complete opposite with Vlahovic in January, and they ended up with egg on their face. They're not doing that again. They're really going hard, and there is talk about up to £200 million being spent, and they're really sort of putting themselves into a position to be able to say, there you go, Arteta, go and deliver. But that's also going to be needed if Chelsea spend what they're looking to spend. Spurs have started well, and they've got 3 or 4 sort of Stokes in the fire, as it were, still as an example. And there is still an expectation that Manchester United will improve with better coach and a better manager, and they're probably going to sign some players. Totally. They're definitely going to sign some people, and everything else. So Arsenal need to jump up to that next level, but they've done some, for me, excellent business. When you think back to a year ago, and it was kind of a bit wishy-washy. I mean, it ended up going quite well last year. A lot of their players turned out to be pretty good, but the sort of approach this year seems to be very obvious. Almost, let's go out and sign that age bracket between sort of 25 and 27 experience to add to these young players. And Arsenal could be quite dangerous next year if they get it right.
Yeah, totally. So just while you were talking there, I got a text saying that Newcastle have got Botman. So that's going to be interesting. Newcastle have worried all the time that they've been in these Sven Botman talks that they were just being used to try and hike up his price. And obviously he was expected to go to Milan. He was linked with, I think, PSG, a couple of others. But it sounds like Newcastle are actually going to win the race and actually get Sven Botman. That is a massive win. And, we talk about the top 6 on this show, and like they make signings of this size, then Newcastle are suddenly knocking on that door next season. Sorry to take it away there from what we were talking about for a second, but that is quite significant, and I'm sure that I've just texted the guy back to see if I can get any more on it. But
yeah, not a problem. That's what people are here for. For people go, oh, breaking news live on the air. That's good. But
yeah,
I mean, Newcastle are a real interesting one because they haven't kind of probably been as busy as people maybe expected. If that makes sense. I mean, Pope's kind of gone it like I think people maybe thought they were going to be a little bit busier, a little bit quicker than they have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is all part of just not wanting to cave in and pay what people want them to pay for stuff and not be, made a joke of because they want to be taken as a serious club. And in their first transfer window, they were so successful. Now Dan Ashworth's come in and he's kind of he's ironing out their targets and their ambitions. And we saw, they had Dean Henderson on the left. He's like, no, we're not going down that route. Actually, we're going to go and get this route instead. And, they go from signing Dean Henderson to signing Nick Pope, which, to be fair, is a better deal. Like they've done well there to get Nick Pope in. Now, get Sven Botman through the door. Ekitike, that was all teed up. Ultimately, the agent was being a bit cheeky, really, from what I understand. And he was taking more than a fair share of the deal, not just from the player side of things, but the deal itself. And that might yet come back on the table for Newcastle, but they can't hang around and they'll look at other forwards. And Ekitike wasn't even somebody they were particularly relying on for right here, right now. He was a project over the next few years. So, they'll make statement now. And Botman is a statement. Again, Man United fans will look at it and be like, "What's going on here? Why are they nailing their man? They could catch us at this rate." And it's a fair point. And your first signings set such a statement about what else is to follow, right? And that's why this early business is so important. And now Newcastle can probably go to Calvert-Lewin and say, okay, do you fancy it now? We've got Nick Pope in goal and we've just signed Sven Botman, who was going to join the Italian champions, but actually decided to come to us instead. Do you fancy it now? It changes things, right? And
it certainly it does. It does. No, you're absolutely spot on. And I think that's the as you say, the key factor, because you look at Arsenal that we were talking about before the brilliant Newcastle news broke. But if they bring in Gabriel Jesus, and then they're talking to Raphinha and other players, it makes it a lot easier because there's other stars there, if that makes sense. Now, listen, Barcelona are the favourites. Their money situation is going to be sorted out in about 6-7 days' time. So it does feel like he's going to end up being in that position. But if you add more and more stars, it is a lot easier to attract other people. And I think that's with Man United. I almost feel like that's why Ten Hag's pushing for De Jong to be this first deal. Because if you can show we haven't got Champions League, yes, we look like we're in a mess, but we've got De Jong, that message to... I mean, Anthony looks like he's pushing for it, but that message to the likes of Anthony, the Pau Torres, these other players. It's interesting actually you mentioned that because it looks like Pau Torres might end up being the option that Man United go back to, which, you told us 4 or 5 weeks ago, people in Villarreal expect that to kind of be the deal it were. But yeah, listen, it does matter what you do. And Newcastle have been a little bit slower than people anticipated, maybe. But as we say, we're only 2 weeks today into the window. That's Nick Pope, that's Sven Botman, on top of what they already bought in January. It's a really good start under life.
Exactly, yeah.
Under life with their new owners. It definitely is.
Totally, yeah. And look, going back to what you were saying about Frankie there and like making a statement, the problem they've got is that Frankie de Jong's point of view on that is that he's tentative about being the first signing through the door because who's following me? Like, what guarantees can you give me that Anthony and Eriksen are coming? That's he. I don't think he wants to be the first signing for Man United. I think he wants somebody else to go in there first so he can see what he's actually working with. He's going to be like, who's behind me? Is it Varane and Maguire? Are you signing somebody else? There's a lot of question marks there because he needs to know that United are elevating their level next season because all the teams around them are, and he's not going to want to be flagging like 7th in the Premier League.
No doubt about it. We've got some questions here for Dean. The first one goes back to the Richard Arnold thing. So they've got a question for Dean. If you are Richard Arnold and you have 10 to 20 fans that will turn up outside your family home and start making noise about United, what would you do? I think he's taken exception to you saying he shouldn't have spoke to him.
Yeah, and that's fine. as I said, Abe was in a very difficult situation. What I would have done personally is I said, right, everyone get your phone and put it on the table. I don't want this being recorded. It's pretty simple. Like you can't risk that because it looks, like.
No, I agree. Listen, I think there's nothing.
I don't think it's hard to take people's phones off them in a situation. You're saying, I'm giving you this privileged conversation with me. I do not want any of you filming it. We're going to a private location. I wouldn't have done it outside either. I'd have found somewhere else to do that. I'd have found a room. This is Richard Arnold, right? I'm sure he's got contacts in. Like, said, all right, get in this car. We're going to this place. We will sit in this room, or take it. All phones on the table right now. Like whatever it is. You can't risk yourself getting filmed in that situation and this stage of life.
Do you know what I thought for me as well? Nothing that happened in that I was annoyed. I mean, everything he said about the Glazers, about the £1 billion, all of that was fine. The only bit I was like, mate, was the 200 million. It doesn't matter because we've been hurt for years by Woodward's stupid comments of we can do things in the transfer market nobody else can. That comment for me, it was almost the catalyst of people saying, all right, we'll see about that, mate. But thanks for the comment there, Jeremy. Question for Dean. Is there any truth to the, I think that's meant to say, it might be Asensio, to rumours to Liverpool?
Asensio to Liverpool. I find it difficult to believe that Liverpool are doing much more business. Because Minamino's leaving, I don't think it's particularly that they're going to replace him. They're going to test out Fabio Carvalho in the attack in pre-season. Long term, they think he'll be a midfielder, and I think they might even change the shape of their team in the next 18 months, Liverpool, to cater for the style of players that they're signing. But I don't think that they're, unless Asensio becomes available in a deal that's you can't possibly not do it at, I don't think that that's something they're looking to do. And ultimately, they want to. They told Carvalho he would have a chance when he came in. They've signed Darwin Nunez since then. Like he's like, okay, where do I fit in? Like he'll get his chance. So I think let's see how that goes first.
Yeah. Cedric here says, Dean, do you think that that the free agent signings have been quiet, and if so, why?
Free agents. Well, a lot of people aren't actually free agents yet. For a lot of people, like their contracts expire on June 30. So maybe that's what you're getting at there. Like if it's like Ousmane Dembele and things like that, then you can agree things in advance. But a lot of the time, there is still a chance that deals can be salvaged last minute. So high-profile players will wait for their contracts to actually expire and then announce what they're doing next, rather than preempt it and announce anything before their contract with their current club has actually expired.
It's still looking as if Salah won't extend his contract. Why do you think Liverpool haven't gone in for Raphinha?
They just spent 75 million on Darwin Nunez, who they didn't plan to sign. They're not going to look to over. They've signed Nunez, and next season they've got. Look, I'm a Fulham fan, and a first day of next season, we're playing Liverpool, and up front it's going to be Diaz, Salah, and Nunez. Like, I'm not looking forward to that. They don't need to be adding Raphinha to that right now. They've got, Jota, they've got now Carvalho, they've got Firmino. That they've got enough depth to that front line already. Than to have to sign Raphinha. But I take your point. Like everybody else in the top six is looking at Raphinha, so why not Liverpool? But still the message is that I'm not expecting anything significant from Liverpool. But look, as I keep saying, Liverpool are very good at doing quiet business. They do not let you know what is upcoming. So maybe they're going to swoop and sign him tomorrow, and they just don't want people like me knowing about it.
Yeah, listen, nobody would be surprised to hear, think, feel, or see that. There's no doubt about it. Nathaniel here says, is there anything between Michael Edwards and Chelsea as their new director of football?
You know what? There does seem like there's something in there. I can't say that it's something I've been particularly closely tracking in the past week when I've been out in LA, but I've had 2 conversations with people about it because I've seen that being mooted around, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there is something in it. It's not imminent. Right now the situation we've got is fine. They're content with Boehly and Tuchel having this relationship, and then they use intermediaries to help them refine the details. They've still got a structure in place. beyond Marina that they can fall back on. I think we talked about Marina, a couple of weeks ago back on here, and the fact that she probably wouldn't be staying, and we should kind of expect something to happen on that front. So Chelsea have been planning this for a little while now, and the structure change isn't something that wasn't preempted. So yeah, my club would be very interesting if they do get him.
Well, we spoke about earlier with Chelsea. It's great super chat. Thank you, by the way. And how if they run it efficiently with their money, Michael Edwards with a bigger budget than he had at Liverpool could be fucking dangerous. Like, sorry to swear, but like as a rival to what Chelsea are doing, always it's like that's my biggest fear, because someone like him should be running Manchester United. If someone like, again, if you gave him the £1 billion that we've wasted in the last 9 years, and allowed the club to be run properly, forget like it would be where we need to be. It's crazy. Like if Chelsea get him, they're going to be very dangerous. And it's interesting because, again, I'll reiterate, rivals keep saying, Chelsea are done, Chelsea are finished. And I just think that's so premature. It's unbelievable. Any news on Sterling and Chelsea? We kind of spoke about it earlier, and Dean obviously said, kind of gave an update to that. But yes, Chelsea are looking at him. There are some reports that he's the number one target. Reports today from DiMarzio's people, there was positive talks today, but it does appear that Sterling's open to a move to London now. But but it's interesting that Chelsea are looking at so many kind of inside forward stroke wingers. Tells me that they're not 100% convinced that they can get him, just because they're keeping tabs on Richarlison. They're looking at Raphinha. There is another name that eludes me. Anthony, they've been linked to. So they're looking at players in that position. It looks like they're looking at players like that rather than number 9s anyway. It certainly looks like
they definitely are. Yeah. And, Kai Havertz did a good job in the 9 last season. They don't play with an out-and-out number 9. That was the big issue with Lukaku. Like, he didn't fit in. Like, he wasn't happy because Chelsea didn't play his way. He couldn't get the best out of him. Kai Havertz is fine in that role, and there are probably others that could fit into that role too if they were to work at it. There are doubts over Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, Werner. At least one of those guys is going to leave. Probably 2, if I'm totally honest. So it is a bit of a shake-up, really, of the attacking options that Tuchel's got at his disposal.
There we go. Dean, a pleasure as always. A lot of people asking about Kounde. Rewatch the video when it re-uploads. All of that has been discussed already on the show, my people. So thank you very, very much indeed. Dean, enjoy the rest of your day in sunny, beautiful LA. And we'll see you again next week. Viewers, please hit the like button before you leave today. Make sure you subscribe to the Football Terrace as well. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you.